Go ahead and call to order and have a roll call for tonight's January 28th, 2025. That's hard to believe. Plan Commission meeting.
Dr. John Price.
Here.
Scott Shipley.
Here.
Brian Schneckenberger.
Here.
Devin Stetler.
Here.
Chad Gooding.
Here.
Katie Reichert.
Here.
And Brian Hartley.
Here.
Brian, it looks like the next item on the agenda is election of officers.
So how that works is anyone other than the current president could make a motion to nominate someone. And then once nominations are over with, I can vote. That's a really simple explanation about it. Any further detail you'd add?
Nope. First and second and vote.
I'll nominate Devin Stetler as president if willing, if he's willing.
I'll second.
I'm willing. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We have vice president, right?
Yep.
Do we have a motion?
It's currently me. I would motion, but I feel weird.
Okay,
motioning
I'd make a
myself.
motion for Brianne to be vice president.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
I think a couple folks have those. Anytime tonight, just go ahead and sign those. That would be great. Pass them out.
Any agenda considerations tonight, Ryan?
No.
Looks like the next item is approval of our November meeting minutes.
Yes, sir.
If the board has had an opportunity to review the minutes, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the November 2024 minutes.
Katie has made a motion of approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Ryan, any old business?
None.
Looks like the first item under new business is Planning and Building Department's request for appointments to the Architectural Review Committee.
Yes, we have two appointments to the ARC. So how this is stipulated is there are recommendations from staff, and then the official appointment comes from the Plan Commission. So Bethany Frost, Tom Strayer, and Dr. Brian Purdy are currently on and would like to remain on. Their terms are still ongoing. Actually, excuse me, are not ongoing, but they do need to be reappointed this year. And then we're requesting approval for two new members, Jordan Adams and Jenna Nepper. Jordan has a background in arts and public service, has a real interest in architectural review, and is applying to Ball State to be in their Masters of Urban and Regional Planning undergraduate program. So Tim and I met, interviewed her about a month ago, and felt like she was a good fit for understanding, what makes neighborhoods attractive, what homes can do for the streetscape of the neighborhood, and felt like she'd be a great person to add to our ARC. And with Jenna, again, a lot of the same interests and skill sets. I thought was really interesting about Jenna is she is an AIM employee. So AIM is Accelerating Municipalities. As you know, we've talked about this before, every few years in legislative session, there are usually some bills that are proposed that look to strike or eliminate architectural standards from being able to be imposed by local government. And so AIM has always fought against that for us, but I thought, man, it seemed like a really good opportunity to get someone really in the backside of the government side of this and really see how it works in real life. And so it just seemed like a kind of a win-win, to be frank about it. So looking for appointments for all five. The two new ones are Jordan and Jim.
Do we have to go through those individually, or can we accept them as presented?
Unless there's one they want to strike, they could vote all at one time.
Unless anyone has any comments on what was presented, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve appointments for all 5 of the presented candidates for Architectural Review Committee.
Brianna has made a motion of approval as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Brian has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Looks like the next item is Planning and Building Department's request to approve rescheduling of the October and November Plan Commission meetings to October 28th and November 25th.
You got it. So we previously discussed this. We just need to make this official by adopting the revised schedule here. Just those 2 months, and today, obviously, to the 4th
Okay.
Tuesday of the month instead of
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rescheduled calendar of meetings.
Brianna has made a motion of approval of the reschedule of the calendar of meetings. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then it looks like there's a McCord Square Review Board update.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
before we get to that, I just had a question about the schedule and some of the deadlines. I'm not sure when we say primary plot and rezone applications are due a minimum of 30 days prior to the planning commission meeting. Is that just the application or is that the completed plans that we will be looking at?
The application, there's usually draft versions of documents filed at that same time, but I can't think of a single time where those things haven't been edited and changed between their filing and when they are ready for your.
Well, I know there's sometimes, I just go back to Jacoby about a year ago, where there was changes being made to those documents in the hallway prior to coming into the meeting. You know, can we set a deadline so that the final documents have to be submitted to the town by X date?
You can, it will slow some things down. I think it's best to describe the development process as making sausage. It's not pretty, lots of changes get made, there's lots of input parties involved, and so it becomes really challenging to create a schedule that's going to work for every project. There's just so many different things going on. The Plan Commission can set its own filing deadlines, I don't think that it says that you can't do that. So that's certainly something the board can entertain if they would like to.
Yeah, I personally would like something earlier because I know I like to look at it the weekend before the meeting, not right before the meeting on Tuesday. And I know a lot of individuals are working probably up until 5 o'clock.
I think the Friday before is 95% complete, I think, the vast majority, if not all of the time. But yeah, there certainly have been times where that last 5% happens over the weekend or on Monday, Tuesday.
I know I've had comments from the public about the lack of transparency because they see things changing up to the last minute. And, you know, I've used the same sausage description as you used. There's a lot of things in flux. But I think putting a deadline like the end of work on Friday, the week before the planning commission meeting, I don't think is going to delay much.
Well, I mean, if it's not ready, it pushes it back a month.
Right. But they will also know that they've got, instead of the deadline being on Tuesday, they've got to complete things, 3 days in advance, 4 days in advance.
At least, we have to have time to look at it, review it, and make sure they actually did what we think was supposed to happen. So, yeah, at least.
Well, does that deadline make sense from a staff standpoint too? I mean, does it help? I do tend to agree with John in the sense that having that stuff or knowing that you're going to have it on a Friday or in my case, because that's when I do a lot of my reviews, would be over the weekend.
I think it depends on, what do you want to constitute as a change, right? I mean, is it,
If we establish that deadline.
Yeah, so I guess my point is if we establish it on Friday and we come back with some very minor change on Monday, is it just dead in the water and needs to come back the next month? Sometimes we're talking about changing a few words here and there, and it can change the entire meaning of a sentence, right? Sometimes it's a big change, sometimes it's not, depends, right? Sometimes a bit of a comma can actually matter to what we will have to enforce 2 years from I think it's just what level of change is okay, or just absolutely none is fine. Absolutely none is the clearest, right? If there's absolutely no change, if you can't change at all after Friday, then that is the clear-cut way to handle it. And if they're not ready, and/or staff feels they're not ready, sometimes the issue is that they've submitted something that they feel is ready, and we say it's not. You need to make changes to it. What will happen in some cases, I think, is the developer will choose to come before you that night, and I'm going to sit here and say, we have concerns. And we're going to, staff's going to request continuances probably at that point in time. A lot of times it's not, they haven't filed something that they think is 100% complete. And we review it and say, it's complete, we just don't agree with it. That happens. That's what happens more than anything else, is the staff has a problem. We have a concern that would prevent us from providing a favorable recommendation on something. And so we're saying, you can move forward if you want, but staff's probably not going to be favorable now. That's probably the biggest thing that I would see happening with this, is you'll get more petitions in front of you that are not going to have staff support as draft.
And you'll come back and say, your preference is to see X, Y, and Z, and then we can approve or reject it based, contingent upon
Good.
X, Y, and Z changes being made.
Or you could, yeah, it depends on what those are. You could approve it that night with changes to be made, which can be done depending upon how complicated the changes are. Or you could continue it and have them come back the next month with the changes.
Well, I'll make a motion that we put a deadline for the submission of the documents for the Planning Commission at 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon prior to the Planning Commission meeting.
Didn't we already approve what?
I think we're reconsidering.
But, but if it's already approved, then there's going to be a motion to undo what we did.
Yeah.
Amend. Well, yes, you're amending what's already been approved.
So I think I'm going to ask if we're going to have a 4 p.m. on Friday deadline.
I think we,
Is the intent that no changes made after 4 p.m. on Friday? Everything's posted, there's no changes made after 4 p.m. on Friday? Because I prefer that, because
Yes.
that means I'm not allowing a petitioner to dismiss it at 4 o'clock on Friday, and then I'm spending all night reviewing it.
Yeah,
So-
easy on you.
Yeah, whatever is submitted, and then if you've got objections or got concerns, they get brought up at the Planning Commission, and then we absorb that and make a decision.
I guess I'd rather have a good product at Tuesday night at our meeting than have a product that we need to bring back another month. I mean, if that means you make changes on Monday to have the right product, I would rather do that.
Meetings are going to get probably messier this way.
That's what I'm afraid of.
It's okay. This is up to you guys. Staff, we'll do whatever is requested.
Can we just have it as a concern? We talk about this
Yeah, I
month
was
and
gonna
then do
say,
it
it's
next
just
month.
it's just
Is that
a
okay?
decision that
So
we
we
have
talk to
to make.
Tim and talk to everybody?
Yes.
Sure.
It's not, I think it's a valid concern, both of
Yeah.
them, so.
I'll
That's
withdraw
okay.
my motion.
So have us come back next month.
Yeah.
with
Yeah, let's talk through what's
potentially a
really,
stronger deadline.
yeah. And what the ramifications are. I mean, if it's pushing 3 days, I don't want it to burden you guys by far, but.
And Ryan, wouldn't it be adding a deadline
Yeah, it's
to
not on
here?
here.
It's not
Not on
actually
here.
changing this, because the filing deadline is still
Right.
at least 30
It's gonna
days.
be
There's just a new,
revisions deadline.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a drop dead deadline. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep. All right, so if you remember, the McCordsville PUD created the McCordsville Review Board, which kind of serves as both the ARC and the Plan Commission for development plans and ancillary plats in that PUD. And so one of the things that's also in there is staff always has agreed to make sure that as MSRB takes action on projects, we bring you kind of a summary of that. So that's what this is. It's the latest project within the McCordsville PUD. This is one of the only area, in the PUD that allows kind of your traditional vehicular-oriented commercial development, which are the outlots along Broadway. This is the first of those. This is the westernmost outlot. It is Taco Bell. How many lots there will be altogether that are along West Broadway is anywhere probably from 1 to 3, from likely 1 to 3, maybe up to 4 or 5, depending on how the lots are broken down, and how much land certain users need. So 1 acre minimums. So here's Taco Bell. It's pretty much a 100% brick building. Details if you want to dig into those, and then the site plan is here. This is difficult to wrap your brain around because of the skew on the site plan. So north is actually this way, kind of. North arrow somewhere on here that I can't see right now. There it is. North arrow is directly to the right. So this site is a triangle that sits skewed to Broadway. And that's created by existing parcel lines. So there's a weird, the Star ATM sits on essentially the inverse of this, but also a triangle lot, creating these 2 triangle lots. And that was something that was really kind of dictated to us because the Star lot was already there. There is a utility corridor. You see some dotted lines here. This is a utility corridor that feeds a few things, but namely a gas substation by factory in town, Centerville. Centerpoint has that now.
So where is Broadway?
Broadway is essentially running like this as my cursor runs.
Okay, and 234?
234 is way off screen down this way.
Do you mind pulling up like the beacon? Thank you. The GIS is so much more helpful than this site.
Yes. That's not good. Don't tell Tim that I'm still going to the old website. Easier to get to sometimes.
As am I.
Yeah, me too.
So this lot is, the eastern lot line is not showing up yet, but it is right here.
Oh,
So this becomes
that
the
triangle.
triangle, the new triangle. This is the existing triangle, that's Star. And essentially this light tannish, brownish color, that is the only location within McCordsville that allows this type of use. True outlots along Broadway, everything else is, more of your pedestrian, walkable, mixed use type of.
It's Star's just gonna keep their weird triangle?
For now, yeah.
Yeah.
So they went through a process a number of years ago with the BZA. I don't know if Brianne was on at the time we did this. They requested approval for that ATM, and that's an accessory structure without a primary structure. BZA approved that with a host of contingencies. One of those being that they start a bank branch and start constructing it prior to April of 2025. So I've had a number of conversations with the Star in the last 6 months about starting that project. I think they are going to request an extension, and staff's made it very clear that they need to show real progress towards the bank branch, not just say they're making progress on the bank branch. So I'm hoping that in the next 60 days, we have actual civil site plans filed, and then we'll get an application from them to potentially extend their request there. And that will be the BZA's job to consider that request. The whole idea there was we want assessed value. We don't just want an ATM. So build a branch or sell the property.
So where is the road access to the Taco Bell?
Yeah, it's hard. So today this exists. As you can see, what you can't see is there's a road that kind of follows the more green color here
Yeah.
and ties into this road. That exists, it's just not showing up on aerials yet. So that exists. So really, if you're coming to Taco Bell, you can come in off of the drive that's been there for years. We've now called it Commons Drive. It didn't have a name before. You can come in this way, or you can come in Civic Drive and come this way. Eventually, Civic will have a traffic signal at it. That is something that we have worked through a signal agreement with NDOT, and I believe we have until 2027 to construct that signal at the town's cost. That will go in the next 2 years. The idea here is that this intersection remains unsignalized we think, or we hope forever, because we don't want another signal. We want the majority of this traffic using this location. We actually, not to get too far off topic, but it is a good discussion, I think, for the Plan Commission. We'd actually like to see in the future this extend across, maybe connection to South Railroad Street. So you can have a four-way intersection instead of a three-way intersection, and then you can get rid of this weird little portion of the railroad here, and
Yeah.
get rid of it,
Yeah.
and get this back to something that is closer to a normal three-way intersection instead of what it is today, which is odd. So that's long-term what we'd like to see happen. I think what will happen first, most likely, is just get the signal put in, post, everything set, place them in positions that would allow us to do the geometrical asphalt work at a later date to make that connection. We're kind of planning for all that, but knowing it's going to happen in phases. We have talked with that property owner a little bit, and they seem lukewarm to selling property so far. Questions on Taco Bell? They are chomping at the bit to get started, so we'll see how fast they decide to.
So who's building the road, the road that's not there now?
They are, it is there today, it's just not shown on the aerials
Oh, okay.
yet. Yet. It exists. Developer JC Partners constructed with that, with Civic Drive.
Anything else going on in McCord Square at this point? The Greeks thing still going? Or?
Is still alive as far as I know. They have not filed their building permits, but we have approved their site plans.
Gotcha.
And the general architecture has been previously approved as well. I do know that they do need the town to work through it. So if you remember, we declared and adopted a riverfront district a number of years ago based upon the legal drain that traverses right next to the McCord Square. It allows us to have a number of additional local liquor licenses. And so we do have to go through a specific process that some others at Taft are helping us do. There's a process to do that. We've done the enabling legislation locally to allow it. We have to go through an ABC process. We have to do some of that before a tenant can do their portion of the liquor license process. So they are waiting us to do that. Otherwise, that project is ready to go. Shelby continues to talk with other developers about, he's got 5 other lots there still that are basically pad-ready lots to go. He has a number of people that are interested. And we sat down with Rebar 2 weeks ago and kind of had a revitalized discussion on it, because with the ready money that we now have, we need them to start to do the rest of their projects, because that's the leverage that we use for ready. So it's time to, I think we've gotten to a system where there's so much interest in it. It was kind of like, which interest do we want to align ourselves with and go with? And so now we need to make a decision. Okay, which projects do we like the best, both the town and Rebar, and go get those done. Because there's just been a ton of interest in, and some are mixed use, some are sole users. There's been folks that want a single floor restaurant with a second floor like banquet hall space. It sounds great, but which spot do you put them at? Because that's a user that doesn't need their building won't take up a ton of space, but they get a lot of parking for that type of use. So it's about matching them up. If you push one-to-one lot, then you affect somebody else's interest in that lot. And so it's kind of like a puzzle game a little bit right now for us. And it's not just us making those decisions. Rebar has to make them as well, so it's not as clear cut as the town just saying yes or no. It's how do we all make it work together. So, I don't think there's anything I can think that I can speak to publicly yet, other than those that you've already mentioned.
Gotcha.
Nine Stars is progressing. We're working through a few minor changes there with them. There was a little problem with the sidewalk at the southeast corner of Main and Mount Comfort Road. That we're working through a small change order there that will fix the problem. If you've been out there, that sidewalk narrows down due to where the traffic pole was set. It wasn't necessarily placed incorrectly. It's a matter of sequencing. The fact that we had 3 different plan sets all on the buses at the same time. And so it wasn't really done incorrectly, it was just not enough communication from all parties. And so we're making a change over there to make that be a little more pedestrian friendly. It's fun times.
Any other updates?
I don't think on McCordsville that I can think of. Well, I'll say it's not necessarily McCordsville yet, but we continue to talk with the 2 different 40-acre pieces to the east of the current McCordsville. So the Thomas family owns the South 40, North 40's Tower of McCordsville, which is a company out of California. They continue to get interest. We continue to have discussions with them. I think we're getting a little bit further along with one of those 2 than the other. I'm hopeful we'll see something come forward still this year on one of those 2. That will be a new PUD, but based off of McCord Square, so that it appears seamless as things actually develop, that it's all one project. This is going to be done with 2 different PUDs. Is that done different times? I think that's it.
Comprehensive plan update?
Yeah, so we are at stage 3 of our comprehensive plans. We've kind of done, the first phases, which were kind of collecting existing conditions, doing surveys, meeting some of that land use analysis. Now trying to put pieces together. So the committee's worked now. I think we just did, we've done 2 or 3 steering committee meetings, and we're currently just finishing up kind of a desktop review of some additional materials. We are going to have a presentation of the comp plan to the town council on Saturday at the retreat, and then we will do the last of the workshops with the public, or it'll be an open house this time more than a workshop here later in February. I think I pushed that date out already to everyone. And assuming things at the retreat and the workshop continue to progress and there's not major changes, we would conduct notice here soon, so that we can have the public hearing on the comprehensive plan, which is your responsibility to conduct that later this month. It could get pushed to March, no big deal if it does, but I feel confident that it'll either be here in front of you here in March, or it could be February or March at your meeting for the official public hearing. That is really kind of the kickoff to the official adoption process. Is that public hearing? You provide a recommendation to the town council on the document. We will go through it in detail at that time. REA, which is Randall Horsham Associates, are our consultants, will be here to present that presentation. They'll make that presentation. We'll have a PowerPoint that goes through all of it, reviewing existing conditions, what we analyzed, look at the survey results, the input from, at that point in time, all 3 of the public meetings that we had on it, in addition to retreat things, and what the steering committee has requested. So you'll get, essentially, it's a draft of the plan, but it is incredibly close to what we hope to be the final version of it. That's what you should be making your recommendation and holding your hearing on. So, that's kind of the procedure of it. Any questions about what we've been working on, or anything about the document itself that I can answer? Right now, we're continuing to work on kind of situating land uses, what things densities could be in certain areas, and kind of place type of things. So, what is the look and feel of it, right? You might have neighborhoods that are more density, but are also that feel more urban, versus your neighborhoods that are more further out into the town, feeling much more suburban, curvilinear streets and things like that. So that's a lot of stuff that we're working through, talking a lot about parks and trails, and making sure we have the right road connections shown, talking a little bit about the typology of the streets, what do they look like, which, we've always been much more concerned about the function of streets, but more about what they should look like, which is the right way for us to go at this point. We're a big enough community to start to focus more on that. So, any questions? Okay. Next up.
Please.
Our training. Beth has it all figured out already.
So excited.
Yes.
Do you want me to sit here, or do you want me to be formal and go stand at the podium?
I can sit there.
Can I sit here? Is that okay? Okay. We know each other as, okay.
please don't make me just sit here and talk for the next 20 minutes. Ask questions, interrupt. This is intended to be kind of a high level. I have a cheat sheet that I'm reading, and I can send to Ryan to forward to you guys, because so much of what we do, you guys know, is statutory, and there are certain things you're supposed to be considering. It might be helpful when we know that we have a plat we're looking at, what are the things we're supposed to be finding, or if we're doing a development plan, what are the things we're supposed to be considering? So we can kick that to your email or however, pass that out for the different meetings to maybe help. Something that I try to share at the beginning of all of these is that we're an advisory plan commission. I know you guys have been on this for a while, but there are 3 different types of plan commissions under the law. There's advisory, area, and metro. Area is county, metro is Indianapolis. So if you ever need to go to sleep and want to read the statutory code, we're the advisory plan commission. What we do, you guys know these, we make recommendations to the council for the adoption or amendment to the comp plan, which Ryan just discussed, adopting or amending the zoning ordinance, the subdivision control ordinance, or PUD ordinances, and zone map changes. Those are the comp plan and any kind of zoning change. You guys make recommendations only, and it's for a favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation. There really should never be a time that we can't decide one of those 3 things. And I have sat at APCs before where there's no motion for any of those, and that to me seems like the perfect time for a no recommendation when everybody's quiet, but nobody wants to say it.
Zone map amendments is rezone.
Yes.
The state's
It's
way
not
of saying it.
just text, it's not just the language that we're changing, it's actually the structure of the map that we're also changing. Things that we make final decisions on that don't go to council: plats, replats, amendments to plats, and development plans, or amendments to those. Things to always remember that we don't talk about enough: conflicts of interest, built right into the law. If you have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in anything that comes before us, you need to recuse yourself, and you need to do it at the beginning. After Ryan announces or the president, I'm not sure, forgive me procedurally, which one of you announces next time on the agenda is, you need to speak up if you believe you have a conflict of interest, because you are not allowed to participate in any kind of communication, interact with the petitioner, or clearly vote. So that has to be done at the beginning. The other time is if you have such a bias or prejudice on a particular petition that you know in good faith that you cannot vote. So a lot of questions I get, it's my neighbor's property, right? This is right next to me. Am I allowed to vote? Well, I'm going to ask you those 2 questions. Do you have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in this project? If your answer is no, okay. Well, are you biased or prejudiced for it? Like, have you been outside picketing because you hate this project so much? Then you probably should recuse yourself, because you can't be prejudiced. And you can imagine that creates liability issues for you. This board is a separate suable entity, so what that means is you can file a lawsuit, but you can also be sued as a board. Stupid lawyers will sue you individually. You cannot be, because none of you has the power to do anything independently. You act as a board. So those are the lawsuits I like, when they actually name you individually, because then I know the lawyer on the other side is not very good. If you ever have questions on conflicts of interest, please call me or send me an email and just say, can we chat about something? I've had that before, particularly with stuff that's come up around a home. Like, I don't have an opinion, but my husband does. Can my husband get up and talk about it? Like, are you sure you don't, Drew? Let's play it safe. All right, so what we do, zonings. I mean, you guys know all this. There's the straight rezones. You go from one district to another district. The one that seems to be the sexy one that we're all doing now are the PUDs. It's become a lot more popular. 2-step process. Here's step 1. You have to have the public hearing by state statute and make your recommendation, and then it goes to council for the final vote. When we are considering zonings, there are 5 things that we are supposed to pay reasonable regard to. Did you love that? reasonable regard to. The comprehensive plan, current conditions, and the character of the current structures and uses. Is it the most desirable use for the land? The conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction and responsible development and growth. So that's what I mean by, it might be a cute little cheat sheet to have in front of you when there's a zoning and we're trying to figure out, is this a good project or not a good project, and does it meet within here?
Those 5 things are always listed for reasons.
Things that we also see as part of zonings, conditions and commitments. Those are 2 legally different things. A condition is something that we as the board are saying, we will not agree to this zoning unless you do this. That's a condition I'm placing on them. A commitment is something that they're voluntarily saying, yes, I agree to, in addition to everything else. It's like an addendum to a contract. We'll commit to do this. We have to be cautious with conditions, not commitments, right? If they want to voluntarily agree to all kinds of stuff and we love it, great. Conditions we have to be careful of. I always say that it's kind of like when your children ask you for things that they don't really have the right to get, but if we give into it, kudos for them for asking. Same thing with us. If this is an extreme obnoxious example, but if we have a PUD and say the only way I'm going to approve of this PUD is if you paint every single house pink. Well, we don't control paint color in our underlying zoning. So technically, I don't have the authority to impose that condition on them. If they agree, great. If they don't agree, that doesn't give me the right to now turn down a project because I didn't have the authority to ask for that to begin with. Does that make sense? It's different when you get into like certain architectural standards or setbacks or landscaping, things that we do control that we want to see changed. But when we start, I have seen commissions actually say, I will not approve this without your business plan. You can't do that. You have no right to ask that question, and you certainly can't deny something because they won't produce that. You guys see this all the time too, and this is just more for the president to have to control, and I know it's terrible. People get up and they don't know what plan commission is responsible for and what you guys are considering at the time. And people, well, how is this drainage going to impact? Well, we don't, right? This is your, unfortunately, your job of, well, we don't have any say over that, right? We don't control drainage, that's the county. Or talking about, well, what if they want to change this in the future? Well, that might be a BZA thing, right? So it's just a matter of being able to explain to the public well enough, this is the plan commission, this is all we're considering tonight, or they want to talk about the pretty picture, but you're doing a zoning. Well, I don't have a pretty picture yet, because tonight is just literally the zoning. So that's like super high level. I'm kind of going through this fast because you're all falling asleep. Any questions on zoning? No. Okay. Plat, I'm not going to sit here and read to you because plat is the most statutory thing that you guys do, and it is truly, here's a list of what is supposed to be in the plat. If these things are there, you're supposed to approve it. If something is missing, you can deny it. There's very little discretion and flexibility when it comes to a plat and not approving it. And that's where staff is super helpful because they can go through the minute details.
Essentially, if staff is saying this plat meets the requirements, you have to approve it. You can't vote. We'll tell you if a plat doesn't meet a requirement, then absolutely you can vote no on it. It's also unlikely that we're going to bring a plat that's not ready to you, but it could happen. So just remember that if staff is saying, hey, met all statutory requirements, staff saying approve it, it's a plat, you have to approve it. You can't vote no.
Yeah, it's not a way to get back in a project. Okay, and then the last thing that you all do are development plan approvals. Again, the statute says, is the development plan consistent with the comp plan and satisfies the requirements specified in the zoning, whether it's the straight zoning we did, which is not going to have any, so your development is going to be, your development plan is going to have a lot more substance and meat in it if it's a straight rezone. Your PUD covers a lot of that already. So does the development plan then match what the PUD said? I think we've all probably learned the hard way that if we don't require the developer to put like the language in that we want to see, they will find ways to wiggle out of actually building. Like the stuff they say doesn't matter, it's the stuff they write that matters, because a lot of these developments don't happen for 5 or 10 years. So I've seen that unfold, and it's a massive, concept plans are a nightmare. I don't want concept plans, I want the plan.
That's why our PUDs are 30 pages long now.
You just learn the hard way, because they
Lots of
just,
administer, but that's how you get what you're supposed to do.
yeah. And again, we are allowed to impose conditions, but they have to be reasonably necessary, whatever that means, to satisfy the underlying terms of our zoning. So in other words, don't ask for bright pink houses because we don't control paint. Until we decide to control paint, maybe our next zoning will decide to control paint.
We do actually say that the houses have to be neutral colors, I believe,
Okay.
something like that, something
Well, then we could demand pink because we control colors.
somewhat generic that,
I just think of Rainbow Row every time.
yeah, in Charleston or wherever it's at.
Yeah.
San Francisco, yeah. So Beth, you're talking about the reasonable conditions, like, what would, because I've heard about other communities many, many times and how they handle development with the plan commission. What's an example of a reasonable condition that we could place on a development plan? Like, I guess my point is, the staff has reviewed a development plan, and it meets all the requirements, they haven't left anything off. Is there something you can add to it that's not,
You want more landscaping than we require?
you can do that?
Sure, you can ask, but if they say no,
Right.
you can't necessarily.
You're asking for a voluntary commitment, not necessarily a condition.
But well, I've asked it, so it would be a condition. Unless they say, sure, we'll commit to that. Okay, then we're gonna call it a commitment. Because I would much rather have, legally speaking, I would much rather have them have a commitment than us impose a condition. Because with a condition, there's like this fine line of a Fifth Amendment taking, right? Like there's condemnation depending upon how far you go. So I'd much rather have them volunteer.
We would ask for it if they voluntarily commit.
A lot of it's I mean, I would say, I don't want to say a gamble, but kind of. If these people are dying to be here, we know they want to build, you can impose all kinds of stuff. You just know it. You have free reign to ask for all kinds of things. If they're kind of meh, you're probably not going to get away with as much. I see some communities that get away with murder because people are dying to be in that area. It's just shocking.
I think it's also important to be consistent, so you can't necessarily treat one petitioner or petition differently than others.
Right, I would agree, to a degree, because every parcel, I mean, like the Taco Bell you just showed, they're all kind of different. So I guess if there's somebody up here who's very passionate about landscaping and they're consistently saying, I want more landscaping, or I want less density, or I don't like certain setbacks, then yes. As long as we can't ever discriminate, right? We can't, on a Title VII characteristic, we can't pick on a project or impose more conditions because of Title VII categories, right? Minority, age, sexual orientation, those
So
things.
it's difficult too, probably, to say, we have an area that's, maybe it's, at least half or mostly developed. It would be unwise for us to request them to, come in at a much less dense than the surrounding properties, without any kind of reasoning why, other than we just want less density. That seems to be a slippery slope.
Well, a lot of that's also decided in your comp plan, because you have dense, right, in your downtown, but then as you go out, it tends to get less dense, and a lot of confusion I listen to plan commissions talk about is where's that line? 'Cause there's got to be a line of less dense, more dense to less dense, but where is it?
One thing too, they already have zoning of some sort if we're at that stage. So if the zoning allows 2 units an acre, to ask them to go under that, you really, I guess you can ask, but
Yeah.
we'd be very careful how we would do something like that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you guys do. Don't screw it up. Don't get sued.
Thank you.
And one other comment that I've received, because people get confused about, is this the advisory planning commission or is this the planning commission? A lot of times, the public, they're looking for like the planning commission and they don't see it because it's listed on an agenda or somewhere as an advisory planning commission. So can we have any consistency to do it one way or the other throughout?
I think we can, yeah.
Yeah.
Here we just call it planning commission agenda. Would you say advisory somewhere else?
I feel
I
like
think
on the
it's on the
website,
website.
that's how
Yeah.
the board's listed on the,
On the new one?
I have to look
Well,
at
the
the
old
new.
one, for
The old
sure.
one, it says advisory.
Not that
No,
it matters.
the old one tonight says McCordsville Plan Commission agenda.
But if you go to like the
If you go into the
board,
top.
like the town official boards. and
Oh, at the very top,
commissions.
I'm under the actual agendas.
Yeah, on the boards and
the bottom.
commissions, it does say advisory plan commission.
Yeah, I think I would go with this planning commission. That's kind of the general name people apply. Because, to Beth's point earlier, the average person has no idea if there's difference between area, advisory, and metro.
Advisory Plan Commission.
Yeah. I think it's a mouthful, so I call it APC.
You guys got me at the APC at the last town council meeting. I'm like, when's that meeting? Like, you're on it. So I was confused. Couldn't make that Dr. Price. I'm confused along with the public. So.
Yeah, because I always think of it as a PC, not
Yeah,
APC.
APC, they got me.
One other question, comment. I feel like we don't have a problem on this board, but can you also clarify like who can and cannot make motions? And so like my thinking is I don't think the presidents are supposed to make motions.
No.
And then I think town council members are allowed, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes preferred not to, or can you clarify that?
The president of the board is never supposed to make the motion. He or she can second a motion, but not make a motion.
Yeah. And then town council members, like what would you advise?
Yeah, I was told when I got appointed that I could make a motion that gets.
You can't make a motion on this board?
It gets
'Cause it goes to
recommended to
town
town
council.
council.
Oh,
That's what I wanted to clarify, because I've heard it both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard
It's been less on
that.
this since we've been doing this.
Yeah.
My first time, it was like kind of staunch.
I've
And I sat
never-
back and there was like, there's four of us up here, nobody's making a motion, so I'm
Yeah.
like I'm like handcuffed here. We have weird,
that's so
intervals.
strange. I've never, I mean, I guess I guess maybe it kind of makes sense, but I've seen it done. I know I've seen
Yeah. It's
council
not- it's
members
not
make
legal or anything,
motions.
it's just
No,
something
that's not in
etiquette,
the
so
statutes
it's a-
at all.
Perfect, just wanted to
So,
clarify it.
do we have rules of procedure?
Yeah.
I don't think our rules of procedure prohibit a council member from making a motion up here. That's interesting.
Yeah, because that's just what I heard too, because I feel like people have said, like, I'm scared to make a motion because it would be coming to our board, but I'm like,
think
I just wanted to clarify.
A preference of our previous legal
Okay.
counsel to not have that. Official.
And I've seen council members switch.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
100%.
Yeah.
unfavorable recommendation here, but by the project changes enough before it gets to council that then they approve it.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen, not here, I don't think, but I've seen it that just, they view their role on planning commission different than town council, and so they'll just vote different because they feel like their role's different. Disregard that one or the other.
Perfect.
don't-
I just wanted to clarify that.
I had one question too, maybe just talk a little about, there's very clear ex parte communication requirements for BZA.
Yeah.
Not so clear for planning commission. What would be your recommendation to the board in terms of communicating with the public about petitions that have been filed?
Don't. That's my recommendation. Don't. Yeah, I don't know why. I assume the reason there's legislation on BZAs because it's quasi judicial. But PC members should not engage in conversations either. On a petition, I would say if you know a petition's coming, if he's put us on notice of something that's going to be filed and you're going to hear it in February, I wouldn't speak to the petitioner or to each other. Now, this is where council members do kind of get excluded because as elected officials representing the body or like representing constituents, you kind of are supposed to talk to people. So you two are sort of excluded from this. But I do think that it's best practice to try to avoid it, because you can imagine a situation where a developer or petitioner comes in and says, well, Brianne promised me this. And I just sit here and go, did you talk to him? I hope you didn't talk to him. That doesn't mean you can't drive by properties and look at them. Just don't get out of your car and engage with people. I would encourage you not to. But it's not illegal if you do. It's just not best practice. It is on BZA, I'm sorry. You cannot.
It's also not realistic for us to be able to tell you every time something's filed that you may sometimes see. So I think the advice is just, someone asks you about a project, just say, I'm on the planning commission, let me see if I can talk to you about that first. And then come talk to us and we'll tell you if it's been filed or not. Or even if it's not been filed, but we think it's coming, we're going to tell you don't talk to them. Because it's going to end up on your agenda at some point. It might be 6 months from now, but it's going to happen at some point. So it's tricky.
Yeah. The whole point is because you're a board that acts as a whole, you're not supposed to gain information outside of the other commission members. You're all supposed to learn the same things at the same time.
It's why, if you had something that got continued, and meeting 1, there were 5 of you here, meeting 2, there were 7 of you here, that presentation starts all over again. It's the exact same membership at both meetings. You can kind of pick up where you left off at, but there's different membership present. It's like we're starting from scratch all over again with them giving the entire presentation all over again.
Anything else? Any other new business?
No other new business. That's what I thank you all for being here and kind of let us work through these housekeeping items without having to clutter up a different agenda for it. And I'm sorry we were running late this morning today.
Then we have the meeting on Saturday.
Yes, everyone is welcome to attend on Saturday. The retreat is 8 to noon-ish. We will start, I think, breakfast at 7:45. The comp plan is going to start around 10:30-ish, somewhere in that range, 10 or 10:30. I can get that time for if you're interested in coming. Come for a portion of it, you can come for all of it. It's up to you. If you're going to be there very, very early morning, please let me know now so that we can see if we can add food to the breakfast. But if you're coming later, then just feel free to come and sit in and listen to the discussion.
Is that a public meeting?
Not a public hearing.
Yeah, they can't talk, but they can.
They can attend and record.
And the, whatever they call that big room.
Figure since there's 5 of us there, that I don't have a choice.
Any announcements? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Brianna's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Yay!